Like we do things because they make sense and because they make difference, but we are not very good at talking about it. I think it's a Slovak nature kind of something.
So when we woke up on February 24 because of explosions or calls from our close ones, there was one more question in addition to the regular questions all the Ukrainians had this morning. What should we do with the game then? Should we have it or not? We decided to try to make it anyway. So we basically organized it from bomb shelters. My name is Elena. I'm from Ukraine. I've been in the gaming industry for almost 12 years. It's actually been 12 exactly in April 2023. I was born and raised and I studied in the eastern Ukrainian city Lugansk. I was studying mathematics and informatics there, so I was supposed to be a programmer. But even though I liked it a lot, I always missed some communications part. Yeah, and back then I was 21, I was completing my master's, and I got to know a young entrepreneur, Maxim. He already had his own company that developed games. It was very surprising for me because I could never imagine that in my Eastern Ukrainian small city, someone was developing games.
Yeah.
I thought that all the games were developed in North America or like in Western Europe. And Max approached me and asked me if I wanted to join the company and to help him grow the company. So it's a fun fact about me that I like to tell always, that my first ever paid job was COO. The company was 30 people back then.
Yeah.
It was iLogos, a game development outsourcing studio. That's probably one of the biggest and most famous Ukrainian studios.
Know them.
Yeah, right now. So I joined it when it was 30 people size, and it grew up to 300 at some point. I spent 6 years managing the company, and during this time I fell in love with games industry. I never even wanted to go and work in another industry, because why? I was lucky enough to start working in the best industry in the world from the very beginning. After I left iLogos, I started doing some private consultancy that at some point grew into business. And in the same time, my friend from Ukraine, Stan, started a company that was called GDBAY, that later became GDBAY. And we've been helping each other with each other's startups a lot. At some point, we just decided, why are we still two separate companies? Because we're basically doing everything together. And we merged. And so now, like, Achievers Hub is like a consultancy arm of GDBAY. And GDBAY is a networking platform where developers can connect with each other, with publishers and investors. And our biggest project is Global Games Pitch still. It involves developers from around the world who pitch games to publishers and investors. Our idea was to provide opportunities to developers from distant countries who are not able to go to GDC or Gamescom because of financial restrictions or like visa limitations. And I'm glad that we succeeded in it. There are developers from over 70 countries who participated in the last event, and not only Europe or North America, also Latin America and Africa and Australia, basically from all around.
So you work with a fairly large variety of different actors in the industry. Everything sounds like from investors to publishers all the way to indie game developers. So what do you see like in terms of like big themes, like big opportunities or big obstacles that companies are facing?
Yeah, I will tell about the good things first.
Cool.
So like one of the things that there are more and more gaming companies in developing countries, and I'm very happy always to receive game submissions from Africa, from some
yeah.
South American countries. And I've also noticed that they started unionizing. And if you talk about the obstacles, well, of course, everybody is struggling with financing this year. And when I'm inviting publishers and investors to participate in our event, even those of them who usually participated year after year, they're hesitant now, and they mainly focus on the games that they already have, on the commitment that they already have. And of course, for developers, it's getting a bit harder to find the right partner for their game.
So normally now I would ask you about the Bratislavan game scene and whatnot, but I think the reason you're in Bratislava is not necessarily the game scene.
I wasn't planning on relocating anywhere, at least in the foreseeable future, but I was forced to. So I was still in Kiev on February 24. Maybe it's also worth mentioning that I'm from Eastern Ukraine, which has been occupied since 2014. So it's my second evacuation and second time fleeing war. I could never imagine that it would happen in my life twice. So my team is still in Ukraine, all of them. So I'm the only one who is outside of the country. We had quite a special situation because we had our big event, an international game jam, hyper casual Jam.com, scheduled for February 25 to February 28 last year, and we were preparing for the game jam. We already had participants from all around the world ready to join the stream, to hear the topic and start working on their games. They were already teaming up in the Discord channel. We had talks from experts that already allocated time in their schedules for this, mentors, sponsors, so when we woke up on February 24 because of explosions or calls from our close ones, there was one more question in addition to the regular questions all the Ukrainians had this morning. What should we do with the game jam? Should we have it or not? We decided to try to make it anyway. So we basically organized it from bomb shelters. I left Ukraine on March 1st, and I've never been back since then. And I've been here in Bratislava. It welcomed me pretty nicely. So I'm really grateful to Bratislava and to Slovakia and to all the people here for their warm welcome. But my team members are in Ukraine because most of them are male and they cannot just leave during the martial law. Some of them are connected to families. And so we had to be, like all the other Ukrainians, we had to be more creative because there are sometimes some interruptions, blackouts. Everybody now has generators at their homes and several internet providers to be able to always be online if some of the providers stop working. It's just a lot of additional restrictions and obstacles. But what I'm proud of is that our company and other Ukrainian companies, they adapted very quickly. And now most of them, they just work uninterruptedly as before.
How was it for you guys to figure out, like, how do you keep running the business and operating, and while you have missiles dropping on people? Like, how was that in practice, the first couple of months or whatever?
The first couple of months were very tough. We didn't know, so we organized a game jam, it happened, but when it was over, we were still in the situation when the future was still very unclear, and we didn't know what would happen the next day. We had several events scheduled, but we didn't know if we would be able to host them and if it was appropriate at all to have events during the war.
Yeah.
But after some deliberation, we decided to continue working. One of the reasons for it was a purely economic reason, to keep money coming into the country, because it was obvious that the war would destabilize the economy. So we started to be this like fighters on economic front. So we decided we needed, first of all, we needed it to keep money coming into the country, to save our own workplaces, to like spend money in Ukraine, buy Ukrainian goods, to save someone else's businesses and someone else's workplaces, to donate, which we've been doing quite a lot since the beginning, and support other people in the industry by our own example, and also support each other. Of course, we understood that we wouldn't be able to do as many tasks, to work as many hours as before, and to be as efficient as before.
Yeah.
So our team calls became 2 times longer. We introduced some practices into this. So we couldn't use practice when we started our calls with sharing what good has happened.
Cool.
And yeah, so it's, in a way, it taught us to support each other in even better ways, and to pay more attention on the mental health and well-being of our team members.
How is it for other companies in the games industry, or kind of in tech or whatever in Ukraine? Like, do you feel that a lot of businesses have kept going despite what's happening?
Well, a lot of businesses, are still going. In the beginning, we had this enormous support from our friends and colleagues from Western companies, and not only Western, overall, everybody who supports Ukraine. And of course, many of these companies still had projects that they were committed to before. But unfortunately, this year, I can see that the war is not going anywhere, and the world is becoming, how to say, less involved and more skeptical and more cautious about this. There are more and more companies that afraid to start new projects with Ukrainian teams, even though they support, of course, like they release these statements of support, which is also important, of course, send some money to humanitarian aid, but when it comes to supporting businesses, they are much more hesitant, and just because of the like obvious risks. And it's pretty sad, because I can see that it's becoming much harder for Ukrainian companies to get a job, to get more projects, to get more partnerships, and there are some layoffs on top of crisis. There is also this, and that's probably one of my current missions that I can see, because I am able to travel, is to travel and to tell that Ukrainians are capable of working just as before the war, or almost like this, and to promote working with our teams, because we really do have a lot of amazing teams who can provide some amazing work. And and they're just like, if in the beginning of war we were all focused on how we can raise awareness about the situation, we were focused on how we can like help our country and engage other companies to help our country. Now, unfortunately, many of our companies are focused on how to survive.
Warm welcome. Hello. She's amazing, right? Like, she's one of the. She holds the culture, I guess, in the company in place. She's the one like showing the mirror, I would say, in Slovakia.
So my name is Lucia. I'm one of the co-founders of the company. And for a while I was running the HR, which we never call HR because I hate the word. It's people. And now I'm in the more of an impact area, no longer on the executive function in the company, but more of the what impact do we actually make in the surroundings where we are.
Is that like a new role for the company, or since when have you been doing that?
Well, I've been doing it for a while, so I was sitting on 2 chairs, but now I transitioned, and I've been doing it for over 2 years.
I don't remember any of the companies we talked with this far to actually have like a dedicated person for working on impact. So is that rare? Is this something unique?
It's very rare. I think it's, I fought for this because I do firmly believe that this was actually one of the foundations for the company where we started. It was one of the ideas was not only to do gaming because we loved games, but also create something bigger because we are in an ecosystem where gaming has no tradition. So how can we make a difference for the industry and for education in general?
Yeah.
My passion is education, so I work with education in general. I teach and we run projects, and when I broke it down, like what actually can make a difference in education is when you start working with teachers. So we have a program with the university that produces teachers.
Okay, cool.
So how to actually shape the curriculum for teachers so they can make a difference. So that's one of the projects. Another project is creating a curriculum for the kids to be activated from just passive learners to active change makers.
Okay.
And using a lot of gamifications. For me, what is fascinating about games is they are learning systems. So using the elements of the learning system that actually work for education. So it's more of a flow. So where you want to go, what are the kind of spots along the way that will get you there, what's the feedback based on which you will know that you are getting to the goal, and that kind of a thing. So because we are one of the biggest companies in the region, we were a number of times in a kind of a position like, are we staying here and building the company here even though there is no tradition, or are we going to stay here and then actually work and create a system for gaming? So that's where maybe it is seen that we work with universities and different things around and created the awareness of gaming as an industry. And because we are in Slovakia, which has a number of challenges, starting from the mindset of like how like us being for years and years under a regime that made us think in a certain way. So how to change this? So we are working with that within the company, setting up the culture in a way that there's transparency is one of the key values, and people orientation is one of the key values. So it's very different from how a lot of companies here are. So we wanted to make sure that when people start working for us, they know what they're getting into, they're treated well, they can say what they want to say, they feel accepted. And that's not a very common thing in Slovakia.
Are you starting to see the kind of impact of your company culture in the broader ecosystem? And
I think so. I think, but we are, we can always do more, right? So there are areas where we definitely could have done more, but we can see the differences because when we were starting, there was no school. Now there's schools and subjects, and gaming is a topic. So there's big companies that do analysis in gaming, so they really see that this is an industry that makes it makes sense. And also because we are one of the fastest running, like I don't know if you can call each other, so like call the company a startup, but we are one of the biggest companies that was raised and grown here. So lots of people listen to what we do and how we do it. So we influence a lot of other companies in their approach. The first time we actually took a big stand was 5 years ago when a journalist and his wife or girlfriend were killed in their home. So we were part of the movement that was asking for justice. And then when COVID came, we were the first company to close and started talking about the threat that is coming, and we started an initiative called Who Helps Slovakia, and we fundraised over 1.2 million euros, and we were buying PPEs for all the healthcare workers.
Cool.
And we didn't do it by ourselves, but we were one of the first ones. Like it was 5 of us who started it. And then when Ukraine war started, we were again the first ones to start Who Helps Ukraine, and we raised awareness around it. We fundraised close to 2 million this time, and we were matchmaking people who were providing their homes to people who were looking for homes. And then we did a lot of other things like integration-wise with schools. We worked with schools and kindergartens and with employers, how to employ people. So we worked with municipalities, blah, blah, blah. There was lots of things. It was last year that this lost youth killed 2 people who were in a gay bar. So again, we took a stand and clearly stated our position, and now we're going to do some more measures within the company. But it's important for us to, because we understand our position in the country, it's important for us to be clear in our voicing of the topics.
I mean, it sounds to me like you are fairly political. I think a lot of gaming companies we've talked to, like they would just go like, no, we have no opinions, no positions on anything. We just make fun stuff. You know?
Okay, so then we are.
Yeah, which is a good thing, which I think is kind of what we're pushing for. I mean,
but that's what I firmly believe, because the moment you start being big, there's like, okay, I'm gonna do this cheesy line, but with great power comes the great responsibility. But it is like that. When we have voice, we should use it. And I'm not saying that go liberal or conservative. It's more of where the common sense is. Like we are all people, so we have to help each other. It started again like around 2 years ago that we started talking about like what is the impact that we are making, or how we can make a better impact in the climate area, and we started locally. So we purchased 17 trees.
Okay.
And we were very happy, very proud. And that's when we realized, like, this is nothing. But we have a wooden plank there in front of those 17 trees that is brought to you by Because of Federation. We realized how absurd it was, but it got us started. And since then, we planted a number of trees, and we always find a partner. So we work with the city of Bratislava, and we were planting trees in kindergartens and school gardens.
Okay, cool.
So this is what we did with local schools and with the city. We are a sponsor of, they call it Zásadný weekend, but it has double meaning in Slovakia. It's the major weekend, but it's also the planting weekend. So the city takes calls, creates a call, a number of volunteers come and they plant trees in different areas. Because we realized when we planted those 17 trees that it's not an easy thing to plant a tree, because there's lots of wires in the ground, so you cannot just plant a tree anywhere. So you need a partner. So we started working with the city, and now the trees are everywhere. And as we were doing this, we were approached by an activist, and her job was not to plant trees, but not to cut trees. So we started working with her, and we've been financing her work for the 2nd year now, going to 3rd. And what she does is she maps trees that should not be cut down or removed from the forest, because there's a whole ecosystem. So she works in the area of around Bratislava. So with these activities, we are very local, but we are also having a broader discussion how to use this use case and bring it to other towns and cities in Slovakia. And as we were doing this, we were approached by partners in a different gaming company. I think it was in Unity, or I don't remember who it was, who brought attention to the UN project Playing for the Planet. So we became part of the alliance 2 years ago, and we were part of the Global Game Jam last year. And with that, we planted a number of trees. We created a lot of awareness in 3-hour games,
Yeah.
and in one of them it really worked. So lots of people were talking about it and were donating for the forests. And with a couple it didn't really, and we got also negative feedback like, why are you being political? I don't want this bullshit, I just want to have fun. But we are going to we are joining again the Global Game Jam this year with a different topic. But yeah.
Cool. Can you talk a bit more about the game that really worked out? Like what?
It was Diggy. It was Diggy's Adventure, and it's a different audience. And then now I don't want to generalize, but it was more female, and they were more active. Like it resonated more. With the transportation games, it's more males, and they want to build and move transport, so it doesn't doesn't resonate didn't resonate so much, but it's not like it was generally rejected. It was just less popular.
I always thought that people who are into trains are by definition like climate activists, because come on, like that's like one-to-one connection.
The Global Game Jam, it really worked for us. Like it's motivating for the game designers because they are together with other game designers, so they can exchange ideas. And being part of the alliance is also useful for me, because we've been trying to calculate the carbon footprint that we make, and the methodology is really like Emmental cheese. It's full of holes. So I don't know if I'm calculating my footprint or footprint of Apple or like So now like this year, what the Alliance is doing is really mapping out the methodology for gaming. So this is really useful, because we would like to do. We would like to work with this and see where we can improve, but in order to do that, we need more clear data than what we have so far. Why is important for me to be part of the alliance is also the information exchange, because like doing the local stuff, it didn't feel enough for me at least. So I was glad that we are part of the alliance, and we are buying trees everywhere around the world because we have players around the world. But then the big Guardian scandal came out with Vera a couple of weeks ago. So I don't think I would have had that in my awareness, and I'm glad it did, because I think it's going to again push for improvement. So internally, what it does is we always we are not only, as I mentioned, we are in education, or not only in the green topics. So we've been communicated it internally and externally. And the communication externally is actually less important for us than the actual impact. So I don't think we are particularly good with communicating it outside. But internally, we always talk about it, and we also let people participate in the planting initiatives. We always let them know when it's happening, and they can participate, and they have been participating. And also, we let them fundraise on a topic that is interesting for them. So they have been doing this for a couple of years, and the amount that the employees donate from their salaries is bigger. Like the second year was bigger than the first year.
Cool.
And in terms of players, I don't think we are positioning ourselves as the green company. It's again depending on packages, teams, and stuff, but it's not like we are the green. We are fairly invisible for the player. I think we are not like if you said who does train stations, maybe someone wouldn't even know if it's Pixel Federation or someone else.
I like it.
Okay.
Don't do drugs.
Or do drugs.
Do drugs.
You know it's on camera, right?
When the war just started, we created this website initiated by Bratislava, the recruiting company from Ukraine, and supported by some other companies. There are several links with forms that you can fill in if you want to help. For example, if you're a company, there is one form. If you're like an individual, there is another form, and you can click how you can help. For example, I can give a free advice, or I can I want to hire a person, and I want to consider a Ukrainian candidate. And they also have form for Ukrainian companies and Ukrainian people who need support, or I don't know, in the beginning of there were a lot of housing requests also. And then the people who keep this initiative running, they match these companies with
Okay.
each other. So I can give you this link.